So I think this is super important because this is not an isolated incident. Melissa, I know you've said this already. Let's say it again. They're not the only people that Richard Baird offered. You call it what you want, payoffs, Christmas presents, special deals. I know that they did it to two other people, other than you, and these were loud Flint activists rallying people up, going to the media. It's a time-tested divide and conquer strategy. Richard Baird in 2018, you were in a meeting with Richard Baird. Your lawyers were present. Did he identify himself? I'm here on behalf of Governor Snyder.
Absolutely. We were having a status meeting in Detroit about basically the state trying to get out of their agreement to replace our lead and galvanized steel service lines. And they didn't want to do independent monitoring. And the person that they had picked was absolutely not independent. That's a whole other story in of itself. And as we're sitting there, Baird is getting angrier and angrier. And it's a long table. So imagine your stereotypical government office. It's got a cooler at the end of it full of Nestle water bottles that none of us took. And on one side is all the state's attorneys, including Snyder's attorneys and the Department of Environmental Quality's attorneys, as well as the representatives. And on the other side is myself, Pastor Overton, who is also a named plaintiff in the Safe Drinking Water Act case, and our attorneys from the Natural Resources Defense Council and ACLU of Michigan. So there's a lot of people in this room along this long table. Well, Baird comes into the meeting late and then plops down. And as time's going on, he's basically getting angry and irritated because people like me don't just say, yes, sir, whatever you want, sir. That's fine. Go ahead and continue to kill me, sir. And so I was talking to him about the testing and how important it was. And he got mad. And then he decided to brag about the fact that he was like, you know what? The residents of Flint just aren't grateful enough for what, Rick and I, meaning Rick Snyder, have done for you guys. You guys just don't appreciate anything. He was like, we didn't have to keep the points of distribution, the pods where you could pick up bottled water. We didn't have to keep them open as long as we did. And like, actually, yes, you did, because we forced you to with the lawsuit. But okay, different story. But he was like, we didn't have to do anything for you guys. I'm like, yeah. And he was like, and you guys just aren't grateful enough. I was like, oh, so how grateful are we supposed to be for you poisoning us? And he was like, well, that is exactly why I pulled the, water bill credits. They were giving us a percentage off our expensive water bills because they said we could still safely flush the toilet. But let's remember, if water's corrosive coming in, it's also corrosive going back out. So that's fine. But that idiocracy aside, the next thing is he said, and because you guys weren't appreciative enough of what we were doing for you, what Rick and I have done for you, he said, that's why I decided to get rid of the water pods, the points of distribution sites. And he said, you know what? I'll tell you this. He was like, Rick and I are out at the end of this year, so we can't be bothered with this. We couldn't care less, basically. And I was like, you just said that to our face. But then it got funnier. I said, well, that's interesting. You're talking about the gratitude we should have. And then I said, why don't you go ahead and come to my house and shower with the acid coming out of my shower head faucet? I'm open anytime. And he got mad. And then when he gets mad, he gets red in his neck and his ears, which then I know I'm doing a good job. And he leaned forward and he was like, well, how about if I personally come to your house and pay to have all of your interior plumbing, your appliances, your water heater, your faucets, and your service line replaced out of my pocket? And he's like, then will that make you happy? Then will that make you be quiet? And I sat there and I was like, well, that's interesting. You just offered to bribe me in front of all of my attorneys and yours, which, by the way, it looked like they were going to pass out. And I looked at him and said, well, that sounds great, but only if you do this for every single household in this city. Obviously, the answer was no.
Can I ask you just straight up, is there any way that Richard Baird was doing these things without Governor Snyder knowing?
God, no, absolutely not. He went, he spoke at, at the town hall meetings, we used to have these like bi-weekly update status meetings about the water crisis, the continuum of care and this team that was supposed to be part of the recovery. He was the one, because Snyder wouldn't show his face to Flint residents until Obama made him show his face and he got booed off the stage for 2 minutes, after 2 minutes. But other than that, he refused to come in front of the residents. So Baird is who he sent to speak for him. And it was very, very clear that he was speaking for, and I mean, and again, he's not going to be able to make these deals and get this money from, the state government without Snyder's say. Because again, he's one tough nerd, and he decided that he has to control everything, which that also means the guy that's doing the, bribe attempts for you. So yeah, I mean, it was very clear. And again, he just kept saying, Rick and I, this. And I'm like, keep saying that, buddy. Good to know. My attorneys are right here.
I'm not asking you to pretend to be a lawyer, but I am asking you just from a common sense perspective. If you have like several examples of the governor's lieutenant in the mafia, we call this the consigliere, basically paying off sick people, threatening sick people. He also threatened a Wayne State researcher who was researching what was the source of the Legionella outbreak.
Right.
When that researcher was starting to find evidence that it was the Flint River switch, he threatened him, we're going to pull your funding if you don't, quote, get on message. That ain't my opinion. That's Sean McElberry. He's the professor. He's the engineering professor who said so, that Richard Baird threatened him. So if Richard Baird is being charged with misconduct in office, 5-year felony, 1 count of perjury, 15-year felony, 1 count of obstruction of justice, 5-year felony, 1 count of extortion, 20-year felony, then you have residents saying, yeah, the governor knew what he was doing because Richard Baird told me that the governor knew. So I'm asking this not as somebody who, I just want justice. I just want the truth. But how is it that one prosecution team found evidence for misconduct in office, found evidence for negligence, and were 75% towards ready to go, almost had enough evidence for involuntary manslaughter. But this investigation, who, by the way, for those that don't know, Attorney General Nessel started basically shitting on the investigation that preceded her before she even got into office, before she even saw one document, before she even saw one piece of anything. In the media, she was basically signaling, I'm going to clean house. And you know what happened when she did that? The defendants that were cooperating with the prosecution, they stopped cooperating because they were waiting to see, well, just, she might win. So why are we going to prosecute with this team and these investigators if she's basically crapping on their work and she's probably going to fire them? They stopped cooperating. What does cooperation and investigation mean? They're giving other people higher on the totem pole. So it seems to me, Melissa, I'm not a Flint resident, so I'm not going to speak that I'm outraged. I mean, I'm not a resident. But what really needs to be explained, I think, the people of Flint are owed an explanation. Did you only charge a misdemeanor because that's the only thing you think is slam dunk to get a conviction? Did you only charge a misdemeanor because that's all you could find? Because it seems to me they think, just my opinion, they took the easy way here. They took what they thought there was a 90% chance to convict. But the problem is, if you convict Governor Rick Snyder of this, he'd be lucky if he gets 6 months in a jail. I mean, he's not going to spend a year in jail. That just doesn't happen with rich white people. And if it does, it's the Jeffrey Epstein situation, which is a bed and breakfast, when he gets to leave the jail to go to his office all day. This is happening in America. So I would really, they don't like me because they've already kind of indirectly threatened me from my last story. But I would like to know, how is it? It's not just me reporting this. Charlie LaDuff is independently confirming, yeah, the original team was going for involuntary manslaughter. Kayla with PBS, the original team was going for involuntary manslaughter and already had misconduct in office, but you fired them. So I don't know. I know that there's a pandemic. I know that there's a lunatic white supremacist attacking the Capitol, but and let's not mention there's also a pending settlement. But what do the Flint residents want? I know you don't speak for all residents, but should these investigators, should these prosecutors explain, why is the governor of Michigan getting a misdemeanor when his right-hand man is being charged with extortion, perjury, obstruction of justice, misconduct in office? I spoke with someone, Melissa, who said, well, maybe they're throwing the book at his right-hand man, hoping that the right-hand man will flip on the governor. Well, if the right-hand man was going to flip on the governor, it would have happened by now.
Right. I mean, you know, and that's not even it, because if they have enough proof, which, by the way, I'm fairly certain the proof was the only reason this man got charged with these certain things is because of your story that came out in April. And of course, they never commented on it, didn't do anything about it. So now, you know, Rich Baird's walking around with these heavy duty charges, which are valid. He's the right-hand man of the guy who is the head guy. You know, this man, Governor Rick Snyder, took control, overrode what the elected, the people said in the ballot box. He overrode the votes of the people and our elected official to steal our democracy here in Flint, to steal our voice, to make all of the decisions about what happens in Flint. And with him being a nerd, he's educated and knows everything about it. But then is like, well, people are dying. Not it. And I think it would be hilarious if he let Rich Baird burn, good. And, if Baird was gonna and if honestly too, and if Baird actually thought he was gonna serve any kind of time, he probably would turn on Snyder. But I even doubt that, because the two of them have been like this since college, and they've had each other's backs, lied for each other, covered up, went out of their way. I mean, Baird went out of his way to cover up for what his buddy was doing. And, Rick had his hand in everything, and you can't play stupid when you have literally titled yourself the dictator over Flint and several black cities, and then saying you're a one tough nerd and I'm fixing all this and blah, 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 when people are dying. People are dying and you knew it and you covered it up, and you have only yourself to blame, since you put yourself at the head of the table and you're the only voice there. Whether Rich Baird did your dirty work or not, you had to give him the instructions. He didn't just run around all crazy by himself offering up these deals. I mean, God, they even asked me, they're like, what would it take for you to trust your water? And then, since you're such a vocal person and people trust you, what would it take for you to tell your friends and neighbors and the public that they can trust their water as well? Oh, okay. All right. So what is that? Nothing. And it's happened. God, I was offered a free service line if I would be part of the recall against the former mayor, Karen Weaver, the only one that stood up against Governor Snyder and who demanded Flint get more resources. And Governor Snyder told her to her face, get over it. I don't want to talk about Flint water anymore.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com, where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.